Assalamualaikum and greetings to respective lecturers and friends. We are from Group 4 is going to present about the Islamic history in Brunei and Philippines.
Brunei is an independent Islamic sultanate on the northern coast of the island of Borneo in Southeast Asia. It is bounded to the north by the South China Sea and on all other sides by the East Malaysian state of Sarawak, which also divides the state into two disconnected segments of unequal size. The western segment is the larger of the two and contains the capital city of Bandar Seri Begawan. Brunei achieved independence in 1984, having been a British protectorate since 1888. It is a member of the Commonwealth and the ASEAN Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Nearly two-thirds of the population of Brunei is classified officially as Malay. This category, however, includes not only ethnic Malays but also a number of the indigenous peoples, namely the Dusun, Belait, Kedayan, Murut and Bisaya. Chinese make up about 1/10 of the population. The remainder of Brunei's residents consists of other non-Malay indigenous peoples such as the Iban or Sidayak, various peoples of South Asian descent, and temporary workers primarily from Asia and Europe. The official language is Malay with English as a major second language. Many Chinese speak thousands varieties of Chinese and many learn Mandarin in school. Brunei's population is predominantly Sunni Muslim, although the Chinese usually follow Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, or Christianity. Some of the indigenous peoples are Christian while others follow their own local religions. Islam was adopted in the 15th century when a Malay Muslim was installed as a sultan. The sultan traditionally was responsible for upholding Islamic traditions, although the responsibility was usually delegated to appointed officials. In 1959, Islam became the official religion of the country. The stability of the existence of Islam in Brunei today can also be seen from the magnificent mosque building. The existence of a mosque somewhere indicates that the life of the community is advanced. Bandar Seri Begawan Mosque in Brunei as a Jami mosque was used as a center for religious activities and the spread of Islam. This mosque is now a landmark and the development of Islamic preaching in Brunei. In addition to its dome masjid, Brunei State Place called Istana Nurul Iman, home of the Sultan's family, is a very large with a gold-plated dome. Brunei's population is predominantly Muslim, although the Chinese usually follow Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism or Christianity. Some of the indigenous peoples are Christian, while others follow their own local religions. The increase in the number of Muslims between 80 to 90% can be attributed to the fact that the Sultan, as the ruler of the government in Brunei, as repeatedly asserted, really made Islam as the ideology of the state. That means it is very impossible for the Muslim population to decline, but it is increasingly experiencing growth in the terms of quantity along with the increase in population. The prospect of Islam's central position is further strengthened by Brunei's progress in all sectors, especially the oil and industrial sectors, which of course have made a significant contribution to the success of Islam itself. The country is becoming rich in that sector and will make its society grow as well, especially an increase in terms of religious experience. Brunei's movement towards stricter Islamic practices initially included measures such as banning the sale of alcoholic beverages and requiring that Muslim children receive religious instruction. The Sultan had long wanted to expand Sharia to include criminal offences by Muslims, and in October 2013, he announced that such a policy would become official the following year. On 30 April 2014, Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah announced the implementation and enforcement of the first phase of Sharia law in Brunei starting 1 May 2014. Islamic teaching is the core moral teaching program of schools in Brunei, and without neglecting other subjects including English. All major disciplines after 3 years of basic education are taught in English. While learning English language, the Malay language is still the language of the original conversation in daily basis. The alumni of the eligible schools were sent to study at Al-Azhar University in Cairo. In addition, some were directed to continue their studies at the University of Brunei Darussalam. Brunei hosts some of Asia's most beautiful examples of Islamic architecture, blending traditional and futuristic elements with elegance. Culture Trips presents the best of Brunei's religious structures, including Bandar Sri Begawan's most illustrious mosque and one that looks like it came from the Medina and Marrakesh. The profoundly spiritual Sultanate on Borneo Island houses some of the Southeast Asia's most stunning mosques. An unlimited national budget, combined with a leader renowned for his refined taste, paved the way for elegance. The emergence of Brunei as an Islamic polity dates to 14th century when local ruler Awang Alap Bertatar converted to Islam and took the name Muhammad Shah. An important hub for a trading system connecting the East and the West, the Sultanate of Brunei gradually extended its control over neighbouring polities and turned into a prominent regional power. Islam began to grow rapidly in the Sultanate of Brunei since Sharif Ali was appointed the third Sultan of Brunei in 1425. Since Malacca, known as the center of the spread and culture of Islam, fell to the Portuguese in 1511, many Muslims moved to Brunei. The influx of religious scholars made the development of Islam spread faster to the community. The progress and development of Islam became more apparent during the reign of Sultan Bolkiah, whose territory included Sulu, Selangor, the whole of Kalimantan Island, Sulu Islands, Balabak Islands, Bangi Islands, Balambangan Island, Matanani and north of Palawan Island to Manila. During the reign of Sultan Hassan, the Brunei Muslim community had institutions of religious government. Religion at that time was considered to have an important role in guiding Brunei towards prosperity. During the reign of Sultan Hassan, Islamic law, namely the Canon Law, which consists of 46 articles and 6 sections, was strengthened as the constitution of the country. In addition, Sultan Hassan has also made effort to perfect the government, among others by forming the Islamic Religious Council on the basis of religious law and courts in 1955. This council is tasked with providing and advising the Sultan on matters of religious ideology. For that, the Department of Religious Affairs was formed, whose job is to spread the understanding of Islam both to the government and its officers and to the wider community Islam. In 1888 to 1983, Brunei was under British rule. Brunei became independent as an Islamic state under the leadership of the 29th Sultan, Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah Muizzuddin Wadaulah, after proclaiming its independence on December 31, 19 83. The title Mu'izzuddin wa Daulah shows the Islamic characteristics that are always attached to every king who ruled.
Islam and Brunei in Architecture and Art. Architecture of Brunei. Architecture of Brunei, the most authentic and oldest form of architecture in Brunei, is domestic home architecture. Since most of the country lies on the water, wooden steel houses were the living arrangement for most of the time, as they tend to be fairly open to let the breeze to cool the house. Although the people have moved away from this style of house to more modern amenities, Kampung Air is still home to many houses in this style. Over the time, the architectural style changed slowly, with no great leaps other than with the introduction of Islam. As a part of the trading world of hundreds of years, Indian and Chinese influence slowly entered the region, but it wasn't until about 1400s when Islam arrived did the style change greatly. The greatest change at this time wasn't in style, but rather in structure of mosques and other Islamic buildings were constructed. Since the time little has changed, the British had some change, but more importantly, brought in new building techniques and materials to be used, and most of the country's commercial, public and religion buildings today are built with this new technology. The origin of Brunei architecture stayed in Batu Tarsila. The historical tombstone, which is situated in Kubah Makam Diraja, gave a strong definition about where the art and tradition of Brunei came from. This interesting record has carved by Khatib Haji Abdul Latif in 1807. By referring to this tombstone, ethnic tradition, art, culture and adat was herited from Negeri Johor Kamalul Makam, Old Singapore or Temasek, and Minangkabau of Negeri Andalas. Pehin orang kaya Amar Diraja Datuk Seri Utama Haji Awang Muhammad Jamil Al-Sufri mentioned in his book Tarsilah Brunei referred Negeri Johor as Singapura Tua because of the existence of Kesultanan Melayu or Malay Sultan and the tradition which was set by Sang Nila Utama or Sri Tribuana. This evidence was again supported by marriage of Awang Ala Betatar or Sultan Muhammad Shah, the first Sultan of Brunei, with Puteri Johor, the daughter of Raja Muda Seri Rana Wikrama. The link between Brunei ethnic tradition and culture with Minangkabau went back to the bloodline of the 14 brothers. As stated in history, the word Demang and Patih were normally used by nobles of Minangkabau, and by referring Awang Alat Betatar brother, their names were of Demang and Patih. Patih Berbai, Patih Mambang, Patih Tuba, Patih Sempurna, Patih Menggarun, Patih Malakai, Patih Pahit, Patih Sindayong, Patih Laila Langgung, Demang Sari, Demang Lebar Daun, Awang Semun dan Pahu Awang. It was found out that there were also similarities in terms of culture, tradition, adat, the way these people live, clothes of people wear, food they eat and motif of decoration between Brunei, Minangkabau and Johor. As conclusion, Brunei architecture formed the combination of these three elements of culture and tradition. The strong influence of Minangkabau architecture somehow had changed through the generation and added up with the influence of strong Islamic religions, culture and tradition by Sultan Sharif Ali. The architecture the tradition. The tradition which came from the palace is very rich of her culture and adat. Adat Istiadat Diraja which was written by Pehin Jawatan Dalam Seri Maharaja Datuk Seri Utama Dr. Haji Awang Muhammad Jamil Al-Sufri has lit up the adat of Brunei, the palace and the people. Thus, this reflects the architecture and art of Brunei. What was interesting with adat Istana is that the adat was very strong and sustained throughout the generation until present day today. If we compare the account which was recorded by Antonio Figafetta with today's orientation of Balairong and Lapau, the layout and the design didn't change very much. This means that the culture and the tradition of adat in the palace is very solid. The form of architecture which has similarity with the picture recorded during the era of Sultan Bolkiah, 5th Sultan of Brunei, was magnificent mosques to the Patarana and Singgasana, such as the corner eave, staggered roof called Leleher, roof shaped not a hip roof nor a dome motif. The architecture of Antul. Adat Brunei has 4 categories: adat law of Islam, adat of custom, adat of any tradition as according to the ethnic group, adat rasam as social habit. In terms of relation of adat to architecture, all categories are related. Some has pantang larang, especially during the design process and during the erection of any building structure, which experience that adat lost through the modernization. The belief as against the technologies nowadays, it seemed to diminish from Malay culture. Why? This was due to the influence of intellectual engineering, which has changed the construction industry in Malay world. Awareness in the knowledge of religion and acceptance of new technology. This belief include selecting the month, the date, the best time of starting the construction, the orientation of the main door, selecting the right time to move to the new house. The standard measurement in adat, example, before constructing any building, the measurement of human dapur is measured to determine the sustainability of the occupants with the new building that will be erected. It is measured from one to end to the other end. It was believed that odd number will cool the house, but to rationalize, it could relate to Islamic belief that the prophet liked the odd number. It goes the same to door. The adat prohibit having even number in door opening to the house. Normally, Malay will prefer to have odd door opening instead of even. Other example, the main entrance door which should be facing the sunrise, which means the door located to the east. In adat, the main door opening to the morning light, which is translated as rezeki, to receive wealth every morning.
Islamic influence in Brunei architecture. In the Malay Kingdom, religion and culture are formed as a part of the daily belief, custom and tradition. They are attached and related to each other. The Malay are very strong of adat ever since the coming of Islam. The adat Melayu, which was merely came from the Hinduism, is still widely used and accepted. The strong arts were then added with religion to abolish the belief of Hinduism. At present, adat has changed its definition from law and belief into arts and culture. Same to the Malay architecture, the adoption of good practice in Islam was taken and brought in together as part of the concept in the design process. In today's setting, design of need and location become priority. For example, designing between bedroom to the living room and toilet. Toilet should be located at the rear direction of Qiblat, direction of Mecca. WC direction should be facing sideways, north or south direction, which means not facing to the west. A symbol of respect. Function leads to the requirement and requirement follow function. Basic elements in Bruneian house. The Malay houses in Peninsula Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Borneo, and the Philippine island are quite similar in terms of their functions and the way of the construction as to Bruneian houses. This could be the result of the continuing process of the learning from one generation to another and the introduction of similar expertise throughout the Malay community. However, some small differences in style can be detected which help to identify the authenticity of their architecture. The original architecture of the Brunei Malay house can be identified through some features. Pemantun tinggi. It is an immovable piece of board located above the floor finishes level at the main door entrance. The door panel is raised above the pemantun level to be placed. People have to step over the pemantun in order to enter the house. The idea is to classify the barrier of the outer and the inner part of the house, the public and the private. Pantaran for Kampung Ayer. It is a platform made of a timber located in front compound of the house and considered as a foyer or informal sitting area. Any visitor will pass through the Pantaran area in order to get in the house. Pantaran is used as a working area for male family members to do their simple work, such as hanging the pukat and fixing the broken net. Sampayan and titian tikus. Sampayan is a ceiling joist made out of timber which runs through the upper walls all around the house. Titian tikus supports the sampayan and it's also made of a timber. The sampayan is used to hold the ceiling finish whereas the titian tikus can serve as ventilation. Tangga pemandian, bathing staircase, is situated at the rear back of the house. It consists of several platforms for washing and bath taking. The platforms are made of a bamboo or nibong, sometimes timber, depending on the high and low tide. Number 1. Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque, Brunei. Among the greatest buildings in the country, first among them is Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque 1958 in Bandar Seri Begawan. The royal palace of the Sultan of Brunei is also an architectural masterpiece and is again very symbolic of the local architecture. The building merges Mughal architecture with Italian style and is an example of modern Islamic architecture. Situated in artificial lagoon on the bank of the Brunei River, a stone-carved ceremonial porch is prominently displayed in front of the mosque. The mosque's most recognizable feature, the main dome, is covered with pure gold. The mosque stands 52 meters high and can be seen from virtually anywhere in Bandar Seri Begawan. The main minaret is its tallest feature. The minaret has an elevator to the top where the visitor can enjoy a panoramic view of the city. The interior of the mosque is for prayer only, with features such as stained glass window, arches, semi-domes and marble columns. Nearly all the material used for the building were imported from abroad. The marble from Italy, the granite from Shanghai, the crystal chandelier from England and the carpet from Saudi Arabia. Number 2. Jami' Al-Hassanil Bolkiah Mosque. Brunei largest mosque dominate its surrounding. It's named after Sultan Haji Hassan al-Bolkiah Muizzuddin wa Daulah. The 29th Sultan of Brunei Darussalam was built in 1988. It was opened and utilized 5 years after on 14 July 1994, on the night before His Majesty's 48th birthday. It was built to commemorate the monarchy silver jubilee rule. Built on the 20 arc lot situated in Kampung Kiarong some 4 kilometers away from the heart of the city Bandar Seri Begawan. It is one of the most imposing and majestic buildings in Brunei. Its grand scale means this sacred building can be seen from the downtown Gadong as well as those who are traversing the highway going to Bandar Seri Begawan. Its overwhelming size also means that it can accommodate up to 4,000 worshipping at one time. The mosque has been noted as an architectural masterpiece. It too is formed from Turkish mosque, which is 4 tall minarets overlooking the grand golden domes. Serene garden decorate the landscape with fountains and pools with many species of flower and plants. It's impossible to miss the gleaming domes and 4 terrazzo tiles minarets as head towards Gadong. Adorned with 29 golden domes at night, and the mosque is lit up like a gold flame. The interior more than matches the mosque, lavish in the exterior, with sweeping staircase, super-sized chandeliers, fine stained glass and repeating motif based on the Islamic geometry. Number 3. Ash-Shalihin Mosque. Unique among mosques in Brunei, the Ash-Shalihin Mosque was built in Moroccan style. Egyptian architecture Abdul Wahid al-Wakil, considered the world's foremost expert in Islamic architecture, conceived As-Salihin Mosque as an oasis of spiritual meaning. Many elements of the mosque were physically imported from its place of inspiration, the North African area inhabited by the Arab Berber culture. Brass lighting and hand-cut zilige mosaic, all from Morocco, enhance the authentic Maghrebi feel of the mosque. Other elements recall the mosques of the Maghreb and the Al-Andalus, from the Arabs-inspired pottery to the open courtyard and its marble fountain. The mosque interior is spacious enough for 1,000 worshippers at any given time. A transparent, retractable roof allows the As-Salihin Mosque to enjoy copious light or cooling shade. Visitors will find the mosque near the Prime Minister Office complex along the Jalan Kumbang Pasang. Silence must be observed at all times. Shoes must be taken off and robe will be offered for visitors to wear whilst inside the mosque. Visitors are also forbidden to take photographs of people in prayer. Sculpture. Sculpture in Brunei takes on a more utilitarian role than an aesthetic one. They use bronze and silver to create adornment and functional items such as bowls, tools, and the like. Artwork. The best place to see the traditional Brunei artwork is in the country's mosque, which contain colourful collections of painting as well as the intricate mosaic and the dramatic design on the very walls themselves.
The introduction of Philippines. The geographical location of Philippines became embroiled in what historians refer to as a search for new land to expand European empire. It's thinly disguised as the search for exotic spice. In early 1400, Portuguese explorers discovered the abundance of many different resources in these new lands heretofore unknown to early European geographer and explorer. The Portuguese are quickly followed by the Dutch, Spaniard, and British, looking to establish colonies in the East Indies. The Philippines was discovered in 1521 by Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and colonized by Spain from 1565 to 1898. Following the Spanish-American War, it became a territory of the United States. On July 4, 1946, the United States formally recognized Philippines' independence, which was declared by Filipino revolutionaries from Spain. The ethnic group. The ethnically diverse people of the Philippines collectively are called Filipinos. The ancestors of the vast majority of the population were of Malay descent and came from the Southeast Asian mainland as well as from what is now Indonesia. Contemporary Filipino society consists of nearly hundreds culturally and linguistically distinct ethnic groups. Of these largest are the Tagalog of Luzon and the Cebuano of the Visayan Islands, each of which constitute of about 1/5 of the country's total population. Other prominent groups include the Ilocano of the northern Luzon and the Hiligaynon of the Visayan Islands of Panay and Negros, comprising roughly 1/10 of the population each. The Wari-Wari of the island of Samar and Leyte in the Visayas and the Bicol of the Bicol Peninsula together account for another 1/10. Filipino mestizos and the Kapampangan of the south-central Luzon each make up small proportion of the population. The language of Philippines. Estimate of the total number of native language and dialects spoken in the Philippines differ, but scholarly studies suggest that there are some 150. Most of the country languages are closely related, belonging to one of several subfamilies of Austronesian, more specifically Western Malayo-Polynesian language. The major language of the country generally correspond to the largest ethnic group. Tagalog is the most widespread language of the Central Philippines subfamily, with the bulk of its native speakers concentrated in Manila, Central and South Central Luzon, and the islands of Mindoro and Marinduque. The national language of Philippines, called Filipino, is based on Tagalog and share a place with English, which is the lingua franca, as the official language and medium of instruction. The religion. Some 4/5 of Filipinos profess Roman Catholicism. During the 20th century, the religion gained strength through growth in the number of Filipinos in the church hierarchy, construction of seminary, and especially after 1970, increased involvement of the church in the political and social life of the country. James Cardinal Sines, Archbishop of Manila, was one of the country's most politically outspoken spiritual leader of the late 20th century. Islam was brought to the South Philippines in the 5th century from Brunei to the west. The religion was already well established in the Sulu archipelago and Mindanao by the time of European contact, and it has growing following around Manila. Contemporary Muslim Filipinos community, collectively known as Moros, are largely limited to the southern island and account for about 5% of the population. The Islam in Philippines. The Philippine military has stepped up its campaign against the nation Muslim separatist movement, bombing a suspected hideout on the southern island of Mindanao. The primary target of the raid were members of Abu Sayyaf, which is seeking to establish a fundamentalist Islamic state on Mindanao. How did Islam originally get to the predominantly Catholic Philippines? The faith was first brought over by Arab traders in the late 13th and early 14th century, at least 200 years before Spanish explorers first introduced Christianity to the 7,107 island archipelago. This Muslim merchant came from present-day Malaysia and Indonesia to the southernmost point in the Philippines, namely the Sulu Island and Mindanao. At the time, the inhabitants there were enemies who lived in small autonomous community. The Arab newcomer quickly converted the indigenous population to Islam, building the Philippines' first mosque in the town of Simunul at the mid-4th century. The Muslim settlers didn't just bring their religion and architecture, however, they also brought their political system and established a series of sultanates in the South Philippines. The most celebrated of these rulers was the Sultan of Sulu, whose capital was Jolo. The first official Sultan of Sulu was an Arab from Sumatra named Abu Bakar, who crowned himself around 1450. He gained power in part of marrying the daughter of Malaysian trader named Raja Babunda, who held sway over Sulu, although he never gave himself the title of Sultan. Like many other Arab rulers, he established his legitimacy by claiming to be a direct descendant of Muhammad. A similarly influential sultanate was established on the island of Mindanao about 50 years later, and Muslim influence rapidly ascends northward up the archipelago, reaching as far as the current capital of Manila on the island of Luzon. In fact, when Spanish first arrived in the mid-1500s, they were dismayed to encounter such a strong Muslim presence. They had, after all, only recently expelled the Moors from Spain after nearly 800 years of conflict. The Spanish nicknamed the Filipinese Muslim inhabitants the Moros, a corruption of the word Moors. The Spanish quickly converted much of the Philippines in Christianity using the sword quickly liberally, but the colonists had a difficult time extending both the rules and their religion to the country south. The Moros fiercely resist many Spanish attempts to establish dominance over Mindanao and Sulu. The Muslims in turn terrorized the Spanish by conducting frequent slave-taking raids on Luzon and in other Christianized parts of Philippines. It was not until the mid-1800s that advancing military technology such as the steam-powered gunboat began to tip the scale of favor of Spain. In 1878, the Sultan of Sulu finally signed a peace treaty with Spain, and his domain officially became an autonomous protectorate of the European power. However, localized resistance still flared up on occasion. The United States took control of Philippines after the Spanish-American War in 1898. The Moors viewed the new colonies as no less objectionable than the Spanish, and they fiercely resist attempts to westernize Mindanao in particular. The US military even had to invent a new, more powerful handgun, the Colt M1911, in order to stop a Moro insurgent. They tend to keep on coming at the American soldier, dagger in hand, despite having been shot. The latest wave of Muslim separatism in the nation's south began in the 1970s. Since the country became independent, the Filipino government has encouraged non-Muslims to move to Mindanao and other improvised locations in the south. The Moros view this policy as designed to do to de-Islaminize the region and believe that the Christians treat them like second-class citizens. Years of bloody struggle have resulted.
The arrival of Islam to Philippines. Islam was first recorded monastic religion in Philippines. Islam reached the Philippines in 14th century with arrival of Muslim traders from Persian Gulf, southern India, and their followers from several sultan governments in Malay archipelago. The first Muslim to arrive were traders followed by missionaries in late 14th and early 15th century. They facilitated the formation of sultan and conquest in Mindanao and Sulu. The people who converted to Islam came to be known as Moros. The Muslim conquest reached as far as Kingdom of Tando, which was supplanted by Brunei vassal state of Kingdom of Manila. The Sultan had begun expanding in central Philippines of 16th century with Spanish fleet led by Ferdinand Magellan arrived in the Philippines. The Spanish conquest during the 16th century led to Roman Catholicism becoming the dominant religion in the most of Philippines, and Islam a minority religion. In the 21st century, there is some disagreement regarding the size of Muslim population. The 2000 census reported that Muslims comprise about 5% of population, and a 2015 report of Philippine Statistics Authority asserted that 6% Filipinos were Muslim. However, it was reported in 2004 that some Muslim groups asserted that the proper number was between 8 and 12%. As for 2020, National Commission of Muslim Filipinos estimate a figure of 10 to 11%, attributing the difference to several factors. Most Muslims live in part of Mindanao, Palawan, and the Sulu archipelago, an area known as Bangsamoro and the Moro region. Some have migrated into urban and rural areas in different parts of country. Most Muslim Filipinos practice Sunni Islam. According to the Shafi school, there are some Ahmadi Muslims in the country.
Islamic art is characterized by design of flowers, plant form and geometric design. It is used in calligraphy, architecture, painting, clothing and other forms of fine art. As Islam spread around the world, this distinct form of art has become an integral part of the identity of its followers, including the Philippines. Islam as a religion has long been established since the early AD 600s. Along with its emergence around the world, it has also paved way for the development of its own unique style of art. Islamic art places emphasis on creating an art form that is built on the beauty and respect for the teaching of Islam. First, calligraphy. Philippine Muslim homes represent their identity. Therefore, Islamic art is seen in their house. These houses usually contain framed calligraphy of Quran passage in its wall. These ornaments usually are made from Muslim-dominated countries like Malaysia, Egypt and Saudi Arabia, brought home by overseas Filipino workers as mementos of their pilgrims. Second, painting. The only remainder of Filipino Muslim art inside most is the traditional art form known as ochre. This art form is believed to be of Hindu and Chinese influence. Ochre uses geometric and floral artwork. One popular motif of this art form is the use of an imagery of a dragon or serpent. There are other figurative representations in Filipino Islamic art, such as the burak, a winged horse with a head of a woman. This imagery related Prophet Muhammad's ascension to heaven. There is also the other famous creature, the Sarimano, a symbol for bravery and nobility. Third, architecture. Most in the Philippines have a common architectural feature that is similar with its Southeast Asian neighbors. It is made of light materials such as wood, bamboo and kagun grass and was used in the building of the early type of mosques. But this light material did not last long. Today mosques, however, are now structurally patterned after the design of its Middle Eastern counterparts. Islamic architecture is commonly defined as building tradition of Muslim of the Middle East and other countries where Islam has been dominant from the 7th century or which emerged after the era of Muhammad. The Philippine architecture is reflected on its culture and history. It is mainly influenced by Spanish and American colonization. Most of the building and structure on the Philippines are mostly designed in modern and usually came from the influence of the architecture of the famous countries such as Spain, America, China, and the Middle East. The Islamic architecture is commonly known for its huge mosques and domes, calligraphy, geometric design, Byzantine central plan or Arab plan, high and massive wall, small opening or windows, roofs that are flat, gently pitched or with domes, columns that are structural and decorative, geometric shape or figurative plan in decorations, ornament with intricate and repetitive Arabic writing. On the other side, architecture of the Philippines is known for its simple but unique design and the natural material in building structures. It is simply simple rather than Islamic, which is elaborative in decoration. Philippine architecture is mostly cube, rectangular, geometric shape in plan, CHB or concrete reinforcement wall, large opening or windows, and gable or pitched roof due to the tropical climate of the country. In religion, Islamic architecture mainly follow the Quran. It gives respect to their God, Allah, and to their religion belief. Islamic architecture is more on towers, arch, domes, designs, and bright colors. Islamic architecture has simplicity of arrangement and structure could give rise to so many diverse shapes and decorations, many of which carry the seeds of structural developments. First architecture is the Golden Mosque, Al-Dahab Mosque in Manila. Also known as Masjid Al-Dahab, the Manila Golden Mosque and Cultural Center is the largest mosque in Metro Manila. Its name comes from its gold-painted dome, topped with a crescent moon, a symbol of the Islamic faith. The mosque is faithful to Islamic architecture. Its elaborate mosaics, pointed arch, and multi-column interior design. The mosque was originally built in 1976 as a project of the First Lady Imelda Marcos in time for a planned visit by the leader of Libya back then, Muammar Gaddafi. Unfortunately, the Gaddafi visit did not push through for some reason. Nevertheless, the mosque remained as the symbol of the city's thriving Muslim community, many of whom belonging to various ethno-linguistic groups like the Maranos, Tausuks, and Mugidanos. The mosque incorporates a mixture of foreign and local influence. Its dome and its wall minaret are patterned after Middle Eastern structures, whereas its geometric design borrow much from the colors and variation of ethnic Maranao, Muginano, and Tausuks art. The curved lines are based on the serpent motif in Maranao art. Second architecture, Sheikh Karimul Mahdum Mosque, Sulu. Tawi-Tawi is not only known for its beaches, but bangau or the agar-agar seaweed industry. This southernmost province of the country is also dubbed as the cradle of Islam in the Philippines. Islam was first introduced here in Tawi-Tawi in 1318 by Sheikh Karimul Mahdum, where he also built the first mosque in the country. The Sheikh Karimul Mahdum Mosque is in Barangay Tubig Indangan, Simulol, Tawi-Tawi, the Philippines. It is the oldest mosque in the Philippines and the Southeast Asia. According to local folklore, it was built by an Arab trader named Sheikh Madum Karim in 1318. It was first thought that the pillars of the old mosque found within the current mosque are the pillars of the original allegedly built in 1318. However, studies from the National Museum of the Philippines have confirmed that the pillars found within the present mosque dates to the 17th century. The four pillars are regarded as sacred and have high status in Philippine culture as they are at least 400 years old and are the oldest known Islamic artifacts in the entire Philippines. The mosque has been declared as a National Historical Landmark by National Historical Commission and a National Cultural Treasure by the National Museum. The original pillars, which serve as the foundation of Masjid Sheikh Karimul Mahdum, are well preserved inside the mosque. These century-old pillars made from Ipil hardwood showcase intricate designs. Moving on to the third architecture, Sulu Provincial Capital Sulu. Located at the heart of Jolo, the capital town of the province, the Sulu Provincial Capital with its Moorish-inspired architectural design and golden domes is considered as one of the most beautiful capital buildings in the country. Located at the very center of Jolo, the main town or capital of Sulu, this building has a beautiful architectural design painted with white that signify purity and gold painted dome that give more attractions. Inside the building, it has incorporated of mixture of foreign and local influence. Its dome and its wall minaret-like structure on every corner of this building is like a tall slender tower, typically just like that of a mosque, are patterned after Middle Eastern structures, whereas its geometric design is much from the colors and variation of ethnic Tausug art. There is also this beautiful stained glass mural by the stairs at the upper level of the building, and that is the work of art of Sir Abdul Imau, a Tausug painter and sculptor, and was a national artist of the Philippines for sculpture. And last but not least, Tulemo Sulu. Masjid Tule is considered the oldest mosque in the province of Sulu. It was established in 1884 and has been a witness to many historical events. It was destroyed in 1974 because of the war between the government and the Moro National Liberation Front and was rebuilt in 2001. It is also the biggest mosque in Sulu and it can accommodate up to 5,000 people. The most prominent landmark in Jolo town, whether viewed from the plan or the boat to Marangas Island, this grand place of worship is a skyline of iron roof house and rickety shanties with its 4 minarets. At dawn, it is a particularly wondrous sight when seen from out at sea, as the morning mist shroud the town with the mountains behind. And taking everything into account, it can be said that Islamic architecture is exceptionally extravagant. Despite its different in terms of purpose, most of them resemble each other to the point that it can be very hard to distinguish certain type of building based on architecture alone. However, similarities can be found among the different mosques. One is they represent the core of the religion. Mosques are built around 5 pillars which are patterned after the crenux, which arrange 4 into the corner of the mosque and 5 in the center. These 5 pillars represent their belief as follow. First, the first pillar or Shahada, which can be found in the center, indicates the profession of faith that one God is Allah and Allah alone. The Salat for prayer, the Siyam for fasting, the Zakat for charity tax, and the Hajj for pilgrimage. Almost all the religions have a center for worship that is called holier than the rest. Christians have the tabernacle, Islam has the mihrab. One other similarity that Islamic architecture have from anywhere is the universal way of decoration and detailing. The Islam architecture focus on details, geometric, calligraphy, and aesthetic. The definition of the pattern can be rooted from its repetitiveness or infinity, which is concept of their God. This similarity from the origin of the Islamic architecture from its other variation like the Philippines, Islamic architecture are merely guidelines that characterize a more general view of the Islamic architecture. Islamic architecture from the Philippines come from influence from Greek culture despite retaining its Islam form. However, the Chinese also influenced Islamic architecture through roof design. A tiered form of roofing in some mosques or Islamic structure are observed in the Philippines. Influence on roofing, however, cannot be ruled all from the Chinese. The bulbos or onion domes are more used into the Islamic architecture, which origin back to Persia, which is spread by the Mughals. However, not all structures use bulbous dome in the Philippines. Roof of dome were found to be octagonal, not bulbous, which may be resulted due to restriction on construction skill. So, that's all from us. Thank you for listening. Have a great day and stay safe.